I've been restoring this Broadcaster, this original Fender Broadcaster, for a customer, and I'm waiting for the finish to cure. So while I'm waiting, I'm working on the electronics. Unfortunately, somebody put different pots in this in the 70s, so it has 70s pots. We don't want that. I was able to source original 50s pots, and they're the right kind that have the blue ink. They're going to be a much better choice because they're the pots that should go in this guitar. They're the right pots, so we're going to put those in. As a reference, I'm using the Blackguard book by Nacho Baños. This is just an invaluable reference for a restoration like this. He goes into amazing detail. And since I don't have any other broadcasters lying around, this is the resource that I'm using to make sure I get this right. I've got the right pots. Blue ink, early 50s pots, and then this is the wiring schematic we're going to use. It's interesting to note that it doesn't really have a tone capacitor in between the volume and tone pots like the later ones do. The earlier one, it has it's a blend configuration. It's called the blend control configuration. A little bit different wiring. These pots came out of a lap steel, so they're not wired how we want them to be wired. So I'm going to take that capacitor off and take the wires off and clean up the lugs and get it ready to put in. And you'll notice these knobs are original 1950 Broadcaster knobs. Just amazing. Well, I think I'm ready to wire this up. I'm going to clean up some. It's got some leftover wires on the switch. Thankfully, the switch is original, and it's got this the original little sheath that goes over the wires to keep those together coming off the switch. It's got the original little resistor and the original cap. So I'll wire it all up, and we'll get this Broadcaster back on the road. Well, there it is. It's wired up, and once I get it back in the guitar, once I get the guitar put back together, then I can wire the pickups to the switch. But man, that looks way better. It looks how it should now. And the intent of this is not to fool anybody. You know, I'm not trying to pass this off as that's how it left the factory. But the right parts should be in there, and I'm doing this for a customer. The guy who owns it wants to make it as close to original as possible, try to restore it back to as original as possible. And I don't blame him. I would do the same thing if it were mine. It's not going to sound any different, but now we know that the right parts are in there, the right pots are in there, and it just brings it back to as close to as original as possible. You know, if you look now at the wiring, it's got the right pots, the blue ink, it's got the original cap, the original switch, the original resistor on the switch, and the original knobs. So that's about as good as it gets to bring it back to as close to original as possible. If you dig this kind of stuff and you want more guitar science, check out my podcast at fretfiles.com, and you can check out my website ericdaw.com. I repair guitars, I build guitars, I restore guitars, and I'd love to do any work like this that you need done. Just let me know. And have a good day. Thanks.